on an Easter Sunday morning, with the sound of an empire's guns ringing in their ears, and their beloved city in ruins, the brave and selfless men and women of 1916 read the proclamation from the steps of the GPO, which set out their dreams and aspirations for a united Irish nation, free to rule itself with an inalienable right to self-determination. Their sacrifice laid down the foundation stone of freedom and nationhood for a small though fiercely proud and independent nation of people on the edge of Europe called the Republic of Ireland. The last 13 years of Fianna Fáil government has brought this country to its most critical juncture since that historic day when the dreams of an independent democratic Ireland rose from the rubble of the rebellion. After years of greed, self-serving cronyism, light touch regulation and downright incompetence, Fianna Fáil have left this country once again in ruins, with its economic and political sovereignty and our right to self-determination handed over to the IMF and the EU. Instead of shattered buildings, they have left a trail of shattered dreams, shattered hopes, shattered families and shattered lives. They have left in their wake a once proud nation, now broken and shackled to the debts of bankers, bondholders and European banks, whose unbounded and unregulated greed brought us to this terrible point in our history. I am proud to stand for Sinn Fein in this upcoming election. I am proud to do so because Sinn Fein, since its foundation, has always been a party that has struggled and fought for change on both sides of this island. And though it is a party of the left, has a social conscience and has always chosen to represent the people of this country and not vested interests, it is not driven solely by ideologies of the left. I believe that while people should argue the politics of the left and the right, surely it is time for us to look at the politics of what is right and what is wrong. It is from that perspective of right and wrong that the true nature of what has been done to our country can be seen. Is it right that citizens of this country lie on trolleys or sit in chairs for days on end in cold corridors in our public hospitals, while local hospitals are closed and large tax incentives are given to private investors to build state-of-the-art hospitals for those who can afford the unjustified and inflated cost of private medical care? Is it right that ordinary people have massive life-changing cuts in their already meagre wages in order to pay for the greed of bankers, developers and bondholders who gambled our future and our children's future in their unending quest to amass huge riches? Is it right that our towns and cities, our homes and businesses are flooded every year because of decaying water infrastructure, while thousands of men and women who could rebuild that infrastructure struggle through life without work or an income? Is it right that 400,000 Irish men and women languish on the dole, while those politicians who put them there are never called to account and retire on massive golden handshakes and lifelong pensions of as much as €5,000 a week? Is it right that Fine Gael and Labour, who claim to oppose this government's draconian budget, facilitated the easy passage of that same budget with its savage cuts and tax hikes into law? Is it right that the poorest and most vulnerable in society have services cut, taxes hiked and their incomes decimated, while tax avoidance schemes for the rich are continued? I believe the answer to all these questions, and many more, is no. It is entirely wrong, and I believe that the majority of the citizens of this country think it is wrong also. We can no longer base the running of this great country on greed, cronyism and political favours. I hear much talk among the political elite about serving the national interest, about how we must always look after the good of the country. Yet their actions show us that they serve neither the country nor its citizens, preferring instead to look after themselves and the vested interests of their pals and friends who they supped with in the Galway tent or played golf with in plush golf courses. Fine Gael and Labour talk about change and talk about renewal, yet they failed the very first hurdle when they propped up this failed government for just enough time to allow them to cripple our economy and our people with the most savage cuts, tax hikes and the new universal social charge, which every citizen knows is just a bank levy forced on the people to make up for the billions they are giving to the banks in a scandalous bailout that was negotiated in secrecy by a small cabal of elites. We know too that both Labour and Fine Gael facilitated the passing of a budget which not only crucified the ordinary citizen but also allowed the rich to continue with tax shelters and tax avoidance schemes. It seems for these parties the only change they are willing to entertain is a change of the names and faces at the helm from the current incumbents to theirs. As willing as they are to maintain the status quo, we in Sinn Fein are determined to fight for change and reform. As willing as they are to acquiesce to the bondholders and bankers, we will redouble our efforts to have the burden taken from the backs of all our citizens. As willing as they are to enforce an unjust and unfair budget on our people, we are sworn to overturn it and bring fairness and justice to all of our people. As willing as they are to burden our people with gambling debts of European banks who lent recklessly to banks such as Anglo-Irish, we are committed to removing that debt. As willing as they are to continue with the failed slash and burn policies of Fianna Fáil, which have crippled small business and stunted development, we are determined to adopt a policy of stimulus and growth. We will do this because we believe it is not only the right thing to do, but it is the only thing to do. I have heard much talk about doing the right thing for Ireland from well-heeled and well-paid politicians, yet every action they take or propose to take sinks our country further into the mire, burying our people under unsustainable policies and a huge burden of debt. We in Sinn Fein believe there is an alternative to the greed and self-serving incompetence that has destroyed our country and left our people with the curse of emigration and the burden of debt, while those responsible sail off into the sunset with their pockets stuffed with payoffs, bonuses and lifelong pensions. On election day, it is not Europe or the IMF who will determine the future of this country. It is you, the people, who will decide. On February 25th, I am asking you all to vote for Sinn Fein, to send out a clear and unambiguous message that this is our country and we have come to take it back. If we do that, then I believe it will be one of the most important things that this country will do since that fateful day nearly 100 years ago on the steps of the GPO by men and women who understood the true meaning of service to one's country.